Welcome to the MMA Roadshow, episode number 280. My name is John Morgan. Cold coffee is with me, and we got a little hot tea in the house as well.
Yes.
Oscar Willis from the World MMA Award nominated, the Mac Life.
It's just every time you say it, I get just chills.
Just chills up and
And
down
I'm not
your
talking
body.
down my spine.
We got the whole crew together. We got the Vegas crew with myself and Cold Coffee. Then we got the road crew as well, bringing in Oscar Willis as well. Figured we'd bring it all together, give you the best of both worlds today.
Yes. Do you already put that on your Tinder channel now?
What, hot tea?
No. Well, that's fine. You can put that. No, the award.
Take a mouthful, it will scold you.
Get it while it's hot.
And we started the episode off like this. This is so good.
No, I meant like putting it on your Tinder like award nominated. You know how people try to tout themselves as being something? You ever thought about putting that on there?
I have. Well, first of all, I don't use Tinder. I've evolved to Bumble, which gives the women the choice
Oh.
of sending you the first message.
Oh,
Because
that's-
I'm all about
wow.
equality.
Yeah, it's very, very
But, I might-
forward-thinking of you.
I might change it, my current bio from, if you don't want me, you can shag my friends, to award nominated. I mean, that'll probably work better.
Get me now before I'm big time.
Yeah. By the way, all you fours are going up to sixes when I win this thing.
Oh, that's phenomenal. By the way, I was trying to look and see when the voting ends for the World MMA Awards. I got to be honest, I don't know.
I think it's October.
Oh, really? So we got a long time to vote.
I think, well, yeah.
They
but
pushed
you,
it back, right? Because the ceremonies got...
Yeah, but you assume anyone who gives a shit would have voted when it...
That's right. Don't waste time.
Yeah.
Jump in.
Yeah.
We got if you're not going to vote for MMA Junkie, which we hope you will,
Then wait till December to vote for the
then you
Mac
can't-
Life.
Can't vote for the Mac Life as well. And while you're there, if you could throw in a vote for John Morgan as Journalist of the Year, I certainly wouldn't hate that. Certainly appreciate it. Listen, we're starting it in fun ways, as always, as this crew gets together. But I do want to roll out some bad news first. We had
Yes.
a little bit of a weird situation kind of happen that didn't involve Cold Coffee having his speakers turned up incredibly loud. It didn't involve that. It was a different situation. Many that are familiar with this program will be familiar with the name Fiasco Jones. And you probably always wondered, why does a man go by a fictitious name of Fiasco Jones? Well, the truth is...
Mother Fiasco.
Yes. Fiasco Jones is kind of a character that's been made up. It's related to Albert Williams, a guy that you used to know and you used to be pretty good friends with and co-workers with at the UFC. And I'm a little sketchy on the details, but you guys had kind of a falling out, as I recall.
Well, it goes back. Let me take you back about 5 years. And one of the Vegas establishments we used to always go to was a place called the Copper Keg, and we would go there after work. And there was one of these times after work. You go and you have drinks with your buddies. You just take turns and you buy drinks and you go about your business.
I got this one. You give me
You
tomorrow.
get me, yeah.
I got you.
Me. It's like that's what men do. That's
Right.
what you take care of each other. It's like, it's my turn, dog. I got you. And on this particular time when it was supposed to be Albert's or Fiasco Jones' turn, he stiffed me. And at that point, I decided
It's the
I was
worst
going
thing you
to
could do to another man.
Right. It's the worst thing. It's literally the worst thing.
Stiffing
Certainly the
another
worst
man.
thing I can think of.
Yeah.
Stiffing
Another
man.
It's
I see
the
where you're
worst.
going with that.
So, I decided at that point, and I was like, at some way, somehow, I'm going to get this man back. And so the idea of our Pepsi character has popped up, and it's something that we've kind of worked into our story over the years. So we've always used just various impressions to cover Fiasco Jones, and that's why we always said it was a Pepsi thing.
And I'm sure people wondered, like, this guy cannot be a real guy. Like, this is a little too over the top.
And he was over the top, and he was a little bit, but so fast forward to now, after us have been doing this bit for years, there were some real ramifications.
Yes. Unfortunately, the real Albert Williams, who was working for the UFC, had to face some repercussions. The Fiasco Jones version somehow became known at the UFC headquarters. And what ended up happening is Albert Williams lost his job.
Can you believe that shit?
This is crazy. It's an unfortunate miscalculation on our part. And you hadn't heard from your friend in a while, but he reached out today.
He did. We found an interesting voicemail in our box. We actually have emails that none of you guys use because nobody's ever asked us to send it. But the real Fiasco Jones has looked it up and sent some emails to. You could either go to there's John at the MMA Roadshow, or you could go to Cold Coffee at the MMA Roadshow. And we found this little tidbit waiting for me today in my email box.
And let me preface it just by saying, not safe for work.
oh yeah,
Not safe for work.
Turn your speakers down.
If you got the little ones around, he was not happy about the situation. But as you said, here's what he had to say.
You motherfuckers! You really fucking crossed the line this time. They fucking fired me because your stupid prank. What the fuck? I didn't say anything the first time you brought up that fucking guy with the impressions of me, because he doesn't sound anything like me. For Christ's sake, the fucker was drinking beer. Everyone knows I don't drink beer, I only drink gin. Well, fucking congratulations, because someone from the company heard this weak bullshit and actually thought it was me. Fuck you! Man, you guys are fucking petty. You're so fucking petty. You really hold a grudge. So I stiffed you on a $35 bill. Boo fucking who? That was 5 years ago, man. 5 years ago. Stop harassing me. Stop it with the fucking impressions of me. Stop calling me at night pretending to be my long-dead cousin Conroy. That's just fucking sick. And stop making fun of my religion. Ophiuchus is real. I saw him. You fuck. You fuck. You fuck. But hey, if you want to make it up to me, maybe you just, I don't know, plug the show, far off topic. And Charlie Goodshoe says hi. Mostly just fuck off.
Chaos, as you've come to expect from Fiasco Jones. Fortuitous. Fortuitous. That's not the right word.
Somebody that likes
frequent use of
somebody
the F
likes
word.
F-bombs more than I do. I thought I cleaned my act up just to have it thrown right back in my face.
That's the most F-bombs we've had on the show in a while, so we'll apologize for that. And we'll also peel back the curtain a little bit. Albert is just having a little fun. He wanted to play a little character and joke around a little bit and have a little scene. Unfortunately, I got to admit.
Because you all, I'm sure as you're hearing us talk about this, could call us on our bullshit.
Yeah.
We're not great actors.
He wanted to have a little. Yeah, we're definitely not great actors. He wanted to have a little fun with it. Albert did lose his job at the UFC, unfortunately, for appearing on this podcast, and so he has worked there the whole time. He's been a good friend of ours, and he came on here and had fun, and unfortunately, he was told that violates some policies. And is no longer with the UFC. And I got to admit, man, I'm happy that he wanted to have a little fun with it, which is why I was willing to play along with his little joke here, because I am a terrible actor. But I felt like I owed him the opportunity to handle it however he wanted to, and I'm glad that he wanted to speak at all, because I got to be honest, man, I'm feeling awful about it. I'm not happy about it at all. I feel guilty. And it's I don't know. It's a tough day, man. It's been a tough week as this thing has all been unfolding. But our good friend Albert Williams / Fiasco Jones is no longer working for the UFC.
Yeah, I mean that's a 10+ year career that just ended abruptly, And it's funny because we could go back and I'd have to look at the name of the Patreon person that asked us to bring Fiasco on because this was your fault. I'm just kidding, but that was fun. That's the thing.
Ruthless.
We've been doing this for over 5 years, and we wouldn't think anything about it. So when somebody's like, "Have Fiasco," I was like, "Dude, you're right. We haven't had Fiasco. Why would we ever think that there would be anything wrong about it? We've been doing it for so long." And you're right. I felt guilty as heck after the fact. So when I called him afterwards and spoke with his wife, expecting like I'm gonna get the third degree, just lashing me, and I didn't get that. I'm super thankful for that from him, because it could have been a lot worse, because I felt like shit knowing that we just wanted to have him on to have a good time, to know that at some point that the UFC would put that against him and said that he violated a social media policy by talking to journalists without getting the clarification. And I think most of you, I always joke all the time. I said, I hate it when people consider me a journalist. I know what I do, but it's like, this is the least, as much as we try to bring you news and we try to bring you information, other stuff, we all know this is always, at the square root, been guys drinking beer, just talking about MMA and having fun. So to think that, somebody's appearance on here could be held against them was very, very shocking. And ultimately, one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about as well, and one of the things that we thought was just sort of strange, was that this whole time, and this is a lot of it's just speculation, but a lot of it's just it's just lots of questions. For this to be a fireable offense, without a warning, without being written up, without anything, just shocked me. And the way my brain works is the first thing I thought is, okay, well they're looking to cut head count. Let's find troublemakers. Let's find people that are doing something, because Dana's went on record and he says, I'm not going to fire anybody due to the pandemic. I'm not going to let anybody go. And if anybody knows what's going on at Endeavor and WME and IMG, they cut like 15 to 20% of their staff. And more people are saying that there's supposed to be more cuts. There's some rumors saying that Endeavor and the WME IMG is going to split, that Patrick Whitesell is going to go and take the talent agency and go one direction, and that Ari Emanuel is going to go the other way. That is his last name, right? Ari Emanuel?
Yep.
He's going to go another direction. But, they're denying those rumors. But, and one of the things, and I talked with you, Oscar, about was like, something just doesn't feel right. Something feels weird. Let's keep an eye out. Let's look to see if there's other random firings, if there's other questionable disciplinary let-goes. Maybe things aren't as great within the UFC as Dana's painting this picture.
It just seems like an awfully strong response to appearing on a podcast.
It sounds so over the top. Nothing was said. If anybody goes back, well, all right, this will answer another question that a lot of people have, if you've started to notice, just to peel the curtain back further, if you notice in some episodes aren't playing right, when this immediately happened,
we pulled every episode.
We tried to pull
every
everything
episode
that we found and tried to just do everything. But at this point, the damage was probably already done. But the way that my brain was working, the way that we were thinking was like, let's remove any reference so that they can't hold it against him, and let him get his slap on the wrist, and then we'll be on it. And if we never have to play those episodes again, I can live with that. But then once the hammer sort of dropped, we need to go back and address that. So if there are some random episodes that you try to go back, and especially the last episode which was the one that they chose to fire him, right now I don't think you can pull it up. We tried to make it private, and that was partly what it is. So if you find some episodes and you miss your favorite Fiasco Jones episode,
we're trying to add him back now.
We'll add him.
There's nothing we can do at this point,
yeah,
so now we'll put him back.
Add him back. So just remind us and let us know, and we'll do it. But I know I'm getting distracted. This is such a crazy thing for me, and very, very emotional. When I was talking about the Oscar thing, I said, hey, and this will kind of be to something that's topical and that sort of just recently happened that's being looked into. I said, let me know if you see any weird instances of other people being let go from the UFC, any firings and other stuff that doesn't make sense. And Oscar, what did you send to me?
It's a wild story.
It is a wild story, but what did you send to me?
Well, I mean, first of all, I just want to say, as someone who did 2 years at acting school, what you've done to the craft today is it's worse than I've seen in anything. No, I saw a story, and I've got to preface it. I saw this on the Reddit subreddit for MMA, where you just sort of submit random links, and I don't know anything about this outlet. It appears to be an Armenian outlet, but the headline is UFC employee fired for allowing Edmund Shavazian to enter the octagon with an Artsakh flag. Now, it's a bit of a strange article. There's a lot of quotes from Edmund himself, but there's also a quote from Dana White, which I sort of struggle to believe is an accurate quote.
Yeah, and by the way, the quote's from Edmund Tarverdian, not Edmund Shavazian.
Oh, excuse me.
Yeah, no, the quote's it's about Edmund Shavazian walking in with the flag, and as you said, I don't even know how you pronounce this, and I apologize. As you said, Artsakh, I guess, Artsakh. I went back and checked the video, and he definitely did come in with this flag. At the fight with Derek Brunson, it looks like the Armenian flag, but there's kind of like a triangle of white basically trimming out of it. And you're right, the article is a little bit weird because it says it says according to UFC head Dana White, the UFC had decided or has decided to fire a 20-year-old employee who was responsible for the athlete's uniform and the flag they would carry. But there's no actual quote from Dana in there, and I don't know. We've reached out to the UFC to try to find out, can we get comment? Can we find out? I mean, it might be something worth asking, when we see him this weekend. It's interesting because Edmen Shahbazyan normally when he walks in, and I went back and watched all his fights. He comes in with like a dual flag of the Armenian flag and the U.S. flag, and this, I guess, is we had some people actually reach out to us on Instagram, on the MMA Junkie Instagram, to talk about this flag, about why it was offensive and how it.
But did you put anything out else? They just reached out to you cold?
They just like a DM into the MMA Junkie Instagram, direct message, and it basically.
I guess you know who complained then.
Yeah, well, yeah, we did. We definitely do. We had that list. So, and I can read it for you because they sent it to multiple people. Like they sent it to Farah Hanoun as well. But it said, "Dear Mr. White and Mr. Shelby." So I'm assuming they were just saying, "Hey, by the way, we reached out to the UFC." There's no context with it, but it just said, "I'm sending this email as someone who is looking for a fair play since sports should always be out of politics. At the end of UFC FN 173, Edmen Shahbazyan brought the illegal flag of Nagorno-Karabakh, which is recognized as part of the Azerbaijan Republic and illegally occupied by Armenian troops. First, this flag is illegal as the flag of Nazi Germany. Secondly, bringing up that flag means making political statements on war zone territories, which is prohibited not only in the UFC, but in any significant sporting events. We, as the people of Azerbaijan, are very concerned with this act and ask you to ban this flag from any UFC events. We're looking forward to the prompt feedback on the situation from your side." So it is something that's definitely bothered somebody. It seems like they have reached out to the UFC. Now, it's whether this article is true about this 20, which I find weird. If it's some 20-year-old, first of all, there's not many 20-year-old kids working there other than interns.
I'm just wondering if that's just a speculation on age. Like he was just like the kid looked 20 to him, and he was like, "Oh, it was some 20-year-old
that's
kid."
Poor. Again, that's poor. That's a bad article if that's the case.
That's the thing about this article. Seems a little sketchy to me. Like I definitely okay, this is controversial. We need to talk about it. Maybe I could definitely see like some change in policy being made as to, because I had never seen this flag before, and I understand. Like I'm not trying to minimize any conflict that's over there. I mean, I understand like the plight of the Armenian people. I'm certainly well aware of that. But as to what's going on currently, I'll be honest, I'm not educated in it. But it could very well, make a policy change. But to fire some kid who probably had never seen the flag before, and by the way, if it's folded, looks exactly like the Armenian flag if that white part of it is covered up. So if you just took a quick glance and you're like, every time this guy has ever walked in, he's had an Armenian flag and not realized this is some kind of protest flag.
And what if he asked him, and he said, "Who's that flag?" And if he said it's an Armenian flag, it's technically, I guess, in his opinion, could be true.
Right.
Because in his eyes, it is a republic of it's a district of the Armenian. In his eyes, it's an Armenian flag.
Right.
Well, without trying to be a shithead, it's not illegal. It's protected by the First Amendment. So he said it's an illegal flag. It's not in America. It's not illegal. I mean, I know that's just one part of his message, but I mean, that's his rhetoric in that message.
Yeah, but you lose a little bit of First Amendment when you start talking about private companies, right? Like you're not allowed to walk in with anything you want to the UFC
It could be against company policy, but isn't the company policy that you can take your flag? I mean, if he think it's so complicated, and I feel a bit uneasy talking about it because I'm so uneducated about the situation. I remember, wasn't there there was controversy with the Rising Sun flag, right? A while ago. That's the only thing I can sort of think comparable to it.
Yes.
But as we were saying, it's because I'm so educated, I don't mean to cause offence, but that this person's perspective is probably very different to Edmen's perspective. And there's going to be places in the world where the rainbow flag for gay rights is considered offensive and stuff like that. It gets very convoluted. Unfortunately, I'm not educated enough on this subject to know, but I definitely think it's something the UFC needs to discuss and answer.
Yeah, I don't know how much they'll discuss it in public, but interesting story, and it's funny how we kind of came across that because we were kind of following up on our buddy. So
it could be a weird coincidence. It could be something that we're just the weird timing.
We can't even guarantee anyone got fired yet. I mean,
that's true. It's just weird. So I mean, I don't want to go too long talking about the Fiasco thing, but it's just something that it's just crazy because when you look at how certain other high-profile fighters have done crazy things and are allowed to work. We look to see your favorite person attacked employees and hit an old man in a bar, and he's still able to come back and get offers.
Well, there's a difference between stars that are generating millions of dollars
and that's the difference.
Rank and file employees, unfortunately.
Right. Unfortunately, that's the difference. It's like where if you're making me money or whatever, they're able to look a difference, whereas if UFC as a policy is like, okay, this is the written word. If you violate it, you're done. But obviously, these money generators are held at a different thing. But regardless, I don't know. I mean,
that's sort of the way of the world.
That's the way of the world.
True.
But I admit that with Albert, I'd be interested to know, like, in his, does it specifically state that in his contract, stuff like that? You know, it just seems a bit of murky.
Well, if you've been a fan
murky.
of Fiasco over the years, he is at Fiasco Jones on Instagram and on Twitter. So if you want to reach out and just give him some kind words, if you got a job offer, he'd probably like that as well.
You can,
and his podcast is Far Off Topic. It is definitely not MMA, as he says. Far Off Topic. He dives into conspiracy theories basically, and
he's got a brand new one to talk about.
Wild
yes, he
stuff
does,
that's out
doesn't he?
Yeah, maybe he'll have an MMA related podcast coming out real soon.
Yeah, so you can find. I know that's on Spotify. So, but if you look for podcasts on Far Off Topics, I think you could find it through Apple.
Yeah, he's on
the
Apple
Apple
Podcasts
Podcast
as
and all
well.
that other kind of stuff. So if you want to give him some love there, yeah, we're totally bummed about that whole situation, because that's the last thing that we would ever want to happen by having somebody on, except for this award-nominated guy. We wouldn't mind off in the competition.
Wow.
You know, by him.
God
coming
damn,
on.
dude! I didn't
Wow.
do anything. Fucking hell!
Just shot in
That's
the
why we
back.
brought him over to get him fired.
Jesus,
man.
talking about my boss, talking about me.
I didn't name names. I didn't name
Okay,
names.
okay.
We had no idea who you were referring to. It was
Yeah.
so vague. I mean,
Yeah.
somebody
Who
would
do you
have
work
to.
for?
Somebody
Who do you work
really have to be on the inside to
MMA
understand
fighter.
that one. All right, well, listen, guys, the show goes
Vox
on.
Media.
It's crazy times, man. We're getting treated to nonstop MMA. I've been thinking about, it's weird because we went without MMA for so long, and now it's like damn near every day. And I wonder, because I love it, man. I'm a junkie. I can watch fights every night. But I wonder about, all those people that before the pandemic had been, yelling about the oversaturation. How are they feeling right now, where we're like, I mean, next week is crazy. Next week is like Rising on Sunday and Monday, Contender Series on Tuesday. The phenomenal Cage Fury Fighting Championships, by the way, just an amazing organization. That'll be on Wednesday, Thursday, then UFC 252 on Saturday. Like, it's
Then
nuts.
back again on Tuesday.
Yeah, man, it's nuts. We're quarantining 2 times a week, or at least I am, because if to go into Apex, I got to quarantine for the day. We're tested 4 times a week, which is crazy. There's a lot of MMA right now, so I don't know. It's a wild time, right? Like, on the one hand, I could see MMA fans saying, God, what a time to be alive, man. I could see MMA every night. On the other hand, I don't know. I think about those people that were complaining about oversaturation. I wonder how they're feeling right now.
Well, I think the sport, or specifically the UFC, anyway, I'll stick to that, has never felt more like they're no longer promoting fights as much as they're just promoting a fight night. They're not promoting the headliners anymore. They're just promoting UFC's back on. You want to watch fights? We're back. That's why you're getting.
Fair point.
That's why you're getting main events that perhaps wouldn't be main events before the pandemic.
We don't even have 253 announced. We don't know where it's going to take place.
Yeah.
But I mean, every Saturday you have a fight, and it's main event headlined by people you would never say, like, that's a headline fight. Even this Saturday you'd probably say, I can't imagine that head. Fucking just deal with it, mate.
Where's
yeah.
my number for Derek? I'm calling him Derek
But,
right now.
But you know what I mean. So now it feels, to try and compare it to another sport, it now feels like instead of we're building up to fight nights, the UFC has almost become a more like soccer. There's a game every Saturday.
That's it.
And it's just becoming.
There's no time to build storylines unless there's something like it's a big fight where there's already something built, like a Stipe and Daniel.
But even
There's just no story. There's no time to build up anything.
there's no time to look beyond the one you're looking at this weekend.
Right.
They might have been a customary effort to sort of. Or, by the way, don't forget, in a week there's like a massive headlining main event heavyweight fight, but it feels like they're just sort of going from one weekend to the next. 253 we just spoke about. That's supposedly headlined by Costa Adesanya, right? Not even
6 weeks away, but
not
we don't
e-
even
not
have
e-
it officially announced.
Not even officially announced. Not one other fight officially announced on the card. No location for it.
Yeah, because if anybody hasn't seen this, we all assumed it was going to be in Las Vegas, even though we all thought it was weird that it was, international headliners. The UFC had been making plans and saying, hey, Vegas, Vegas, Vegas. In fact, they went so far as to earlier this week at the Nevada State Athletic Commission meeting, they got all the September dates approved. And then we see an interview with Dana White today where he tells Complex, yeah, it's probably going to be on Fight Island.
Yeah. Yeah, who the fuck knows? And it's sort of getting up to now. I've been very understanding, which I'm sure they're really grateful for that I'm understanding. But up to now, I've been sort of, I get it, like who the fuck knows what's going on. But now it seems like The governor of Nevada said, "We're no longer going after industries, we're going after individual businesses.
Right.
You can prove to us you're not a risk.
You're good.
You're fine." So they have Vegas at where they want to be.
Yep.
Like Abu Dhabi's always there as well. So you've got both. So I feel like we should start getting back towards the more, okay, we can tell fighters that in 6 weeks you'll be competing here or here. You should know one or the other. I understand that there's still travel restrictions and stuff like that. Ironically enough, today the U.S. government just said that Americans can travel wherever they want now, but not.
I didn't even know that.
Not the other, about 4 hours ago. Not the other way around though. But so you can spread it everywhere, but you can't bring it here. But
Sweet.
America.
But
That's a very American policy right there.
But I feel like they should be getting on top of it now, and I don't think they are. Nor do I think they particularly care to, because it's working right now.
It's wild to think how much uncertainty there is, man. All right, though, we did get back to Contender Series. I enjoyed it. For you guys, I don't know if you guys were in the media tent, of course, collecting all the winner interviews. It probably felt like just about any other fight night, because that's kind of our life, right?
Finished
it's Groundhog
early,
Day. Did finish early, only 4 fights, which was crazy. I actually got to go inside, which was cool, because this year there are no friends and family, of course, because of COVID-19. I liked it. Dana said afterwards he didn't enjoy it as much, and I kind of understand what he's saying. Like, there is something to be said about the people yelling and the families and stuff. I'll be honest with you. Normally on the past seasons of Contender Series, when they have the friends and families, I'm just nervous people are going to start fighting outside of the cage, man, because they're so close to each other and there's not a lot of security and people are yelling and you can hear them because that's the only people that are yelling. But I kind of enjoyed it, man. I kind of enjoyed the eerie silence. It reminded me of being back in the Tough Gym, except of course it was a much nicer setting. So I kind of enjoyed the setup. And I'll tell you the other thing I took away from this week was the increased amount of, since we're talking about COVID-19, the increased amount of security around the Residence Inn, around the host hotel. There's a Residence Inn basically just at the – man, how full is that property going to be when football actually has people again? It's literally right in the footsteps of Allegiant Stadium where the Raiders are going to be. But man, they're controlling what cars pull into the parking lot, and man, they got like a tent set up outside, so you don't even have to go inside. It's man, they really are stepping their game up. I feel like they took a little bit of Fight Island and said we got to put that here in Vegas.
It is kind of interesting. The tent setup reminds me of something that you would see if. Say if there was an emergency or something and the Red Cross is on scene. It was a large tent that when you walked in, you had the medical portion off to the side. You had the UFC check-in, the sign-in right to the side, and that's where you took the picture of, instead of the Dana White contender.
Instead of the contender cookies?
You had the cleaning solutions. It was awesome. It was very, very neat. That's one of the things I always tell some of the people that ask, like, oh, isn't it crazy, though? You're out and you're being around and you're having to get tested, all this other stuff. I feel good knowing that I know I have no uncertainty I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that are just like, I should just get tested just to see. Being around and being in an environment where it is so secure and there's so much testing, there's something that feels good about it. As much as it, granted, we're not getting a nose swab every time, so then maybe I'd complain.
No, we're not.
I don't mind what the testing that we're having to do, and and for all these people that are so freaked out about, oh, don't wear a mask, don't whatever. The fact that I feel like I'm getting back to normal, the routine of going to do these fight things, and that means I have to give up a little bit of time to go get a swab, to wear this mask while I'm transporting or while I'm sitting in this thing. I'll do that every day of the week, knowing that I'm getting back to like more normal and getting back to fight action. And now it's kind of crazy because, like you said, we're getting so much fights that now it's almost like, be careful for what you wish, because now I think by the end of this, 8 or so week stretch, I'm going to be sick of fights.
Yeah.
I'm going to be sick of fights, but we have no time off because the UFC just keeps going. There's just going to be more and more. So it's a good problem to have, I guess, but I love the fact that the Contender Series is back, and there's something so quaint about it. What was nice that Oscar even graced us, this award nominating guy.
Amazing.
Graced us at the weigh-ins.
You gotta share the crumbs, man. You gotta share the crumbs.
Because normally it's just me and Morgan there at these things, and it's kind of
funny. You can really see it in the fighters' eyes as they came in and they realized, Is that Oscar Willis?
Is
Am
that
I
Oscar-
Is that
am I
Mac
way in?
Life's Oscar Willis?
Mac Life's here? I mean, if they go off of your YouTube numbers, there's some good reason to, because you guys do some killer numbers. So I'm sure.
Don't try and turn it around. Like with a fucking.
I mean, I still want you to get hit by a car before the voting's
Oh,
done.
that's sweet of you.
No, but seriously, it's there's something so cool about. It's such a small, quaint scenario that I get so amped up. Like when I'm sitting there, what's kind of funny about it is luckily I just kind of ball hog the front and just sit right in the middle. So what's kind of funny is that when anybody that's watched anyone and they hear Heidi Dean's voice say 5 seconds, baby, right here in the middle, she's pointing to my camera, and because right in the beginning, right below me though is the photog sitting there, but she's pointing at my camera. I'm like, thanks, baby.
It feels
Thanks, baby.
it feels like regional sized, but without the bullshit that comes with regional shows.
Yeah,
right?
sure.
It's still streamlined, but it still feels regional. But it's.
But with like the UFC's like plus, because you're right.
You don't have someone shouting homophobic slurs at each other. You know.
Right.
That's another thing. That's what I started thinking about that when you were talking about when the family and crowd is there inside the Apex, or even at the UFC gym. You know that every single person there is so into it. They have something at stake. So when you hear the cheers, you feel
It's not
the
just a
emotion.
casual fan.
It's not fake.
I was going
It's
to ask
like
you, John,
real.
is it more intense with the families there or without? Because I always found with the Contender Series, having the families there, when someone lost, the absolute energy of devastation.
I know.
From
You
what
feel it in
that
the
felt
air.
way worse.
You feel it
so,
in the
so
air.
when is it more intense with them there or without them there?
It's probably more intense with him there. I just think I feel more comfortable because I'm not.
Because
I'm
I
not there yet.
remember this because the side was like opposite to the media, and I just thought, if they see us sort of just casually logging in,
Yeah.
and their guys just been.
Oh, it's so intense,
Yeah.
man. It's somebody's.
Or worse, when you see somebody like pull up their phone and your son's walking by them, heartbroken. Who's that damn media guy with his phone?
Yeah,
I should
man.
shove that up his fucking ass.
Oh, it's so
you know?
intense, man. Like I always felt like it was about to pop off between two families or whatever.
Yeah.
That's
It's
somebody's
amazing
loved
that
one,
hasn't
man.
happened, really.
I know.
Yeah.
There was the one. Remember the girlfriend that got like kicked out?
Oh,
Really?
yeah, she was freaking out. That was at the No, it was at this one because I remember
It was
that
last-
happened at the Tough Gym, but
Yeah.
it was last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, she got escorted out. She couldn't
Because
she
they
was
wanted her to
freaking
stay
out.
in her seat. I wish I could remember the fighter. Well, it probably doesn't matter. I don't want to call that fighter out. But the girl
Yeah.
was getting out of her seat and like going up to the
Latoria
cage.
at her old tricks, was it?
Yeah, it was just yelling, and they were like, "You got to sit down. You got to sit down." So finally, they
She's
kicked her
going
out.
up to the cage.
Yeah, she would like get out of
Yeah.
her front row seat and go up to the cage and be yelling stuff. And then they kicked her out, and so, but they didn't escort her all the way out. They basically just escorted her out of the cage area, but they're still inside that big sound stage. And so she would basically like walk behind a set of the rise seats and duck in like where the walk-in is, start yelling from there, and then they turn around and be like, "We said leave." And then she
Jeez.
walk back behind another
Yeah.
set of bleachers, and oh, it was crazy.
Imagine Eddie Alvarez's wife in there.
Exactly. That's what it was like. It was that kind of volume.
But that's what's kind of awesome and unique about it is that those people are so invested and that there's so much emotion. I know even as a media sitting there and watching it, even when it was at the Tough Gym, I was more separated distance-wise from the action.
Right.
But even being further back, you feel that energy throughout the whole building. There's just something so incredible about being with like fans that are diehards. Even if it wasn't family, if they just picked and choose like diehard fans, put them in there, I think the energy would just be through the roof.
I would argue there's more pressure on a fighter debuting in the Contender Series than there is in a regular UFC show.
I think so
Because
too.
Yeah.
they know the only people who are here to watch me are my friends and family, who I will be most upsetting
Yep.
if I lose. Whereas if it was like Clive from Utah or whatever in the front row, you don't know that guy.
Yeah.
Uros Medic was definitely the star of the episode the other night.
Was he?
Kudos to Cold Coffee for picking up. I always talk about like speaking Dana, like when you just spend like hours and hours and hours of time
Yeah.
around him, where you're like with the Dustin Jacoby call. I heard you say it. You're like, he just decided just now.
I was
And
like,
sure-
I
Yeah,
think
they
he
nailed
decided-
it. He nailed it.
and he admitted afterwards. He's like, yes, he literally decided while he was on the spot with Laura Sanko. And as we were watching that in the room, you were like, I think he just decided just now.
Yeah.
And he actually admitted afterwards. Jordan Leavitt out of Syndicate MMA, interesting character for sure, man. And
Yeah.
I think they're proud. But I will say, by the way, Sherrod Blackledge, also from Syndicate MMA, signed as well. I saw they put that on social media this week. He's another kid out of City MMA that I'm super, super high on. So keep an eye out for Sherrod.
Were you surprised that it was three?
I was, yeah.
I was wondering, with the.
I thought Jacoby wasn't gonna get picked. No disrespect, because he looked phenomenal. And as I asked in the press conference, I'm like, does it suck that you got paired up with the world's toughest human being? Like, that dude was done.
Yeah.
And so I felt bad for him, but you could tell there was one moment where his opponent was against the cage and kind of covered up. And instead of backing away to just continue looking for the finish, he shot in for the takedown, and I was like, Dana's done with
that first round and a half, Jacoby looked amazing.
Amazing.
I mean, the even the color commentary couldn't say enough about him. And as it went on, that was the point. I was like, oh my God, his chances are going out the window. I feel as he was tiring, but he was so impressive that first round and a half. I was like, he's a shoo-in. He's a shoo-in. But I started questioning. I was like, are they going to go hard and give 3?
Right
off the bat, because there was a point where we were like, man, they gave 3 during the episode.
But I'll tell you what though, and maybe this is going to factor into it too. They need bodies right now. Yeah. They need bodies, man.
TSN's Aaron Bronstetter interviewed Dana and said, your roster's looking like pretty big at the moment. Like, you got a large roster, and with the Contender Series, by the end of it, you could have an extra 20-odd guys or something like that. And Dana said, that's not a bad thing right now.
That's so true. I'm telling you, I didn't think it's funny that was a great question by Aaron, because I hadn't really thought about it until we just mentioned it right now. But I think he might be a little bit more.
They need opponents for Chimaev.
Yeah.
Like, he wants to fight every week, folks. We need 40 more people.
Like, I'm a lightweight. He'll never fight me. Oh, he's coming down to 155. Damn it. But yeah, no, I think right now they might be a little bit more lenient in just having people. Yeah. And by the way, I didn't really think about any fighter out there right now, man, hopefully you've realized by now, stay near your weight and stay ready, because, man, they're hurting for people. And it may be it may be the day of the fight they're going to be calling for people. Did you see Gerald Harris is saying that every week he's going to stay on weight? Yeah, and I love Gerald, man. He's been around the game for a long time. He said every week he's going to weigh in, document his own weigh in, and just be ready, so they know.
Yeah. I'm telling you, dude, if you have family in Las Vegas and you're a UFC fighter, I'd probably come to chill.
Come on out here.
You just be ready.
Yeah.
Well, that was one of the hardest things that, and this fighter's going to kill me, but for this Contender Series, was it Demonte Johnson? They got pulled off.
Yeah.
The fighter, so he took the fight short notice. Huh?
You got what? Pulled off.
Oh,
sorry. Yeah, sorry.
Whatever.
You meant something else.
Yeah, no. But I mean, so here's a guy that was struggling, and this goes to the point of trying to be closer to weight, because you never know what's going to happen.
Demonte Robinson.
Yeah. So he was struggling so hard to get it. The guy, when he first took the plastics off, I didn't really see much, sweat on him, and I was like, oh man, this poor guy, he's trying to shave or try to shed some more. And he came back, and I didn't notice at first, but the UFC photog pointed out about how he shaved his head, probably shaved off every hair off of his body. But that's what some of these guys are doing to try to get these short notice fights. So you're right. If somebody's
if he really wanted it, he'd have had his blood drawn. That's when you're hardcore,
right?
Do you remember that guy?
Oh, it's so crazy. But I felt so bad for him. And then he did all that, and then to have the fight pulled off
for a different reason.
So
apparently, he had some eye injuries that he didn't know about.
Just so crazy. So I hope he gets another shot. Hopefully they'll
know about an eye injury.
I don't know.
Hopefully they'll do right by him, because we've seen it before where something's happened, even when guys have won but didn't get a contract, come back later in the season. Yeah. So hopefully they'll get recycled back around, and we'll actually get to see him, and they'll get rewarded for that work. But you're right. I think if fighters right now can just get in the mindset of stay close to one of the weight classes that you're either used to or right next to it, you might get that call.
It's funny you say about the Contender Series guys getting second chance and stuff, because I remember when it first started, I was like, oh, it's a one and done thing. But actually, the whole concept of the show is these are the best people out there. Just because they lose that one fight doesn't mean they're not. So you can
you couldn't even see him in the same season, which is crazy.
Yeah, well, I mean, that guy will definitely fight this season, I think.
I think so as well. I think so, too.
The bad news we got that night, we found out for sure that it broke while we were there, that we lost the Yair Rodriguez versus Beat Magomed fight. We kept wondering why it wasn't being announced. We knew for a fact that Zabit had signed his contract. We had heard behind the scenes, and I think he actually came out and said it publicly. We find out Yair is hurt. So I wanted to ask you guys, what do you think the move is right now? Because Zabit is campaigning and saying, well, I was here, I was ready, that was my number one contender fight, didn't happen, give me the title shot. Alexander Volkanovski kind of responded and said, nice play, but get yourself a fight and we'll see about it. Yair is saying, hey, hang on and wait. Like, I'll get ready. But I will say, I don't know that – I mean, I guess you could say it for both the guys, to be honest with you. But waiting for Yair, man, he doesn't fight frequently. Like, I don't know that you wait for Yair. I want to see the matchup. And as we talked before, Oscar, I mean, there's not a lot of fights that A, are happening, B, make a lot of sense. I mean, what's the play here? Calvin Kattar is saying that he's interested. He's in. They have some history. I don't know. What's the right play here?
If I look at it from the outside looking in, without knowing their own personal situations, if I was to beat, this is a fight that's been kicked around a long, long time, and for whatever reason, one or another, it's not come to fruition. So waiting for Yair would be out of my interest. I also combine that with the fact that we're in a, despite the fact I just about 10 minutes ago said things are back on track, we're in a pandemic. You got to get paid when you can get paid.
Yeah.
I think so. If you're here, you're in shape. Just get a fight. The odds are in your favor. So I would take a replacement fight. I would take it against Calvin Kattar because it's probably the one name that isn't a massive step down. It's still worthy of your time. I would do that. Calling out Volkanovski, I can appreciate the effort, but
hey, take a shot.
It's not going to happen though, is it?
Yeah.
Besides Volkanovski's in Australia, what's he going to come back here, quarantine for 14 days for a short notice fight or whatever? So if I was Zabit, I would get paid, fight Calvin, kill off another contender, and then if you beat Calvin, they'll give you the title shot.
That's what I think too.
They'll give you the title shot, and then they'd probably do Holloway versus Yair.
Yeah.
Because
that'd be a great fight.
I'd love that fight, but I wouldn't wait for Yair because of
I agree. I think that's the fight to make. I think if you're Zabit, you can sit around try to play hardball and say I deserve the title shot, but I don't think.
But they want to give him the title shot. They like that guy. They like his following. They like that region. They want to give that, like him versus Volkanovski in Abu Dhabi. Yeah, they'll take that. But he just needs that one win.
I know.
Kattar's on a big sort of push at the moment. Get him.
To me, it's a no-brainer. That's the fight you got to make.
I think it's the fight. I asked Dana at the are you looking for a replacement? He said yes. I'm pretty sure if they're looking at any fight, that is the fight they're looking at.
Yeah.
It's just whether Zabit takes it or not.
By the way, shout out to my CFFC crew. We just added Zabit's little brother next week, so he'll be on the CFFC 82 card. So we were supposed to. That's a late addition of the card. We got 2 events, back-to-back nights, Wednesday night and Thursday night. So I'll actually be in Philadelphia calling fights on those 2 nights, and I'll fly back for UFC 252. And by the way, I want to shout out my CFSC crew as well. Chris Dawkins was supposed to fight in the main event of the Wednesday card for the CFSC heavyweight title, and he got the call to the UFC, and they said fine. And I think that's awesome, man. Like, the dude was supposed to be their main event in their return fight from a layoff, and they said, nope, we're here to develop fighters for the UFC. And if he got the call, he got the call. So I just want to give them a shout-out because I thought that was pretty cool. We've seen situations where other people kind of sit on fighters, and I don't like that.
Yeah, don't do that.
Don't do that. NSAC meeting. I want to touch on this real quick from Wednesday. Obviously, telephonic meeting. They're not doing any in-person meetings anymore. 3 different UFC fighters were on there because of temporary suspensions for marijuana. And I just got to say, garbage. And by the way, this is not USADA. This is the NSAC only, okay? My understanding of the USADA policy now is that the USADA puts marijuana on its drugs of abuse list, which means if you test positive for it, you have to subject yourself to potential like counseling or rehab policies, things like that, but you don't get suspended for it. So they are not going to face any repercussions from USADA. This is all from the state of Nevada. And I got to say, man,
where marijuana is legal.
When marijuana is completely legal. And I just find this archaic. And I tweeted about it the other day, but I want to take a chance to speak about it again because I think it's archaic. I think it needs to be changed. Now, I will say this. I do believe it's fine to test for marijuana. I do believe for the safety of the athletes, we do want to make sure they're not under the influence when they step in the cage for their own safety. It's the same reason we don't allow fighters to be drunk. Obviously, alcohol is legal. You can consume it, but we don't allow fighters to be under the influence of alcohol when they step in the cage. And it's for their own safety. Like every athlete you talk to will say, hey, if my opponent's high, cool, go for it. Like, I know his response is going to be slower. Like, I'm going to have it. So no fighter cares about their opponent. It's for their own safety. So I'm totally fine with testing for marijuana to see if they're under the influence at that time. But other than that, metabolites, from them smoking on Thursday, or I was talking to somebody about these cases behind the scenes, and they were saying that some of these numbers they think might have been from like a week ago or 2 weeks ago, because when you factor in the way you're cutting weight and all that, I mean, to me that's just obscene, and I just want to throw it out there that dude, this has got to change.
Yeah, it's pathetic. It's embarrassing, and it's but we're not long from the state that tried to ban Nick Diaz for 5 years. But we're talking about a state where it's legal. You have people with medicinal cards for it, which means it's a medicine. I'm completely with you, John, that I don't want fighters going in there stoned on fight night. I think that's ridiculous. I think it's fair to expect better from the athletes for that. But like you say, I just don't get it. For God's sakes, it's ridiculous.
It is absolutely
it's hot
ridiculous.
garbage is what it is.
It's got to change. I understand that there may be a chance to change it, that they might talk to him about it, but I'd like to see it done. Hopefully these fighters don't. It's going to be addressed at next month's meeting. Hopefully they don't face much repercussion. Maybe it's one of those things where they're like, hey, we'll give you 90 days, which is really not a suspension because you probably wouldn't have fought in 90 days anyway,
So I just hate the idea that they can take your money from you. They can stop you from working because you had a smoked a J.
Especially if they come to the point where it is just trace amounts, so that it doesn't seem that it came from fight night. It should be completely out of their purview of being able to be punishable for it. It's just ridiculous.
It's kind of crazy. Like we just said, the in-competition window versus the out-of-competition window. If it's a legal substance in that state, it's actually none of their fucking business if you've touched it before the night of the fight, in my opinion.
I agree.
Yeah.
It's actually none of their business.
Especially when we know it's not anything performance enhancing.
Yeah, of course. I mean, if you went out on a bender or whatever the night before and you came and you were still a bit impaired, maybe there's a case. But marijuana doesn't really do that to you.
Yeah, you're not going to show up hungover, right? Like with alcohol. So just want to say that I think I hope there's going to be a move towards adjusting this, but it needs to be changed. The other thing I wanted to point out too is Marc-Andre Barriault was on there and he tested positive for Ostarine. Ostarine is, and I've talked to Jeff Nowitzki about this in the past. I've talked to some other people as well. As far as we can tell, like it's literally just cross-contamination issues in production facilities. Like it's something that stays in your system forever. Nobody would ever use it intentionally with any half degree of intelligence. But the thing is, these athletes have to understand there is supplements that you can take that are basically certified. They're certified safe. They've got these logos. I'm looking at it right now. I had Jeff sent me the thing. Jeff Nowitzki sent me. I'm looking at all these logos. I mean, they educate the athletes into what they can take and say, make sure it has this on it, because if it has this, informed sport, trusted by sport, certified sport, NSF, man. Take that, and it frustrates me that people take these. They know that there's contaminated supplements out there, and yet they continue to allow themselves to be put in this position.
Well, but it's if you're an athlete, it's probably just, unless you get to the top tier where you're constantly exposed to the best nutritionists, the best sort of sports scientists. Man, some of them just probably grab protein powder because they think, I should probably take protein powder. They don't even know why they're taking protein powder. They're just grabbing it. I just remembered this while you were talking back on the cannabis thing. Didn't a cannabis company sponsor the UFC?
Aurora CBD. Aurora CBD.
What sort of mixed message is that?
Well, and again, the USADA program doesn't, but this is Nevada. Stay in Nevada. So, all right, listen, that's into my soapbox there. I should say, if you like what you're hearing, and hopefully you do, even though it's been a bit of a wild one with the way we started, we would appreciate it. But take a chance.
If you want to support the firings of people,
then what you do is you make sure that you're subscribed wherever you're listening to us. You also take a second to rate us, review us. You could be like our man Anthony Beach on Apple Podcasts. He logged in. Not only does he send us fine frosty beverages from Latchkey Brewing, but he also took the time to log in and said, hey, behind the scenes and insider MMA info. He said, if you enjoy all things MMA and combat sports, this is the podcast for you. John Morgan and Cold Coffee cover the sport with an immense amount of passion and knowledge, all stemming from years on the job of experience covering the sport. Hilarious discussions fueled by frosty beverage consumption, featuring awesome guest hosts like Oscar from the Mac Life.
Oh, cheers, boys.
And Simon Head as well.
Oscar?
The award-winning.
Award-nominated.
I just gave him the award.
Yes!
Oh, no. Yes! What have I done?
It's all mine.
Hot tea for the win.
So leave us some feedback. We'd appreciate that. Give us 5 stars if you can. Always appreciate that. Or if you want to take your game to the next level, head on over to patreon.com/the MMA Roadshow, where, by the way, Anthony Beach also signed up over there. Anthony Beach is this episode's MVP. The man sends us frosty beverages, which, by the way, he said another shipment. He actually texted me while we were talking here. He said a frosty package should be arriving on Saturday for yours and Cold Coffee. So he's sending us
frosty beverages.
some more Latchkey. So he's sending us some more Latchkey Brewing, and he took the time to log into Apple Podcasts and rate us and review us and leave us feedback. And he joined up over at patreon.com/the MMA Roadshow, where for as little as $3 a month, you can get access to everything over there. It's kind of a little community over there. We interact a lot. Well, I mean, I try to interact with everybody on Twitter, Instagram, wherever I can. But if you're there, if you're at patreon.com/the MMA Roadshow, you're getting messages, bro. You are reaching out to me directly. So
you're gonna get more shit than you want
up over there.
You get half naked scar pictures. You get the. I was taking pictures.
I thought it was the other one you sent me.
No, that's just private, dog.
Oh, thanks, baby.
That's a different Patreon. It's far more expensive.
That's my fans.
It's called OnlyFans.
Was it OnlyFans? It's my OnlyFans page. Yeah.
There you go.
All right, Anthony Beach gets MVP for this week. But I also want to give a shout out to Michael Jung, who also signed up, and Eric Carvet, who stepped up to the star level, man.
Yes, I saw
stepped
that.
Stepped up his game.
Well done. I mean, I'll be the first that, one, I have no kind of Twitter use or following, but I love Patreon. I love the fact that I know that these people are paying attention to what's going on. So I love talking on Patreon. I maybe tweet like 5 times a year, and it's usually pictures of Oscar or pictures of
Understandable.
Of me, right? I'm like, I gotta
scar.
get known, or like half pictures of myself, so half naked pictures. But I love it. I think you're right. I think we've fostered a really fun community within the Patreon thing, and it's fun. It's fun. I like interacting with the people there because they ask really, really good questions.
Educated.
So it's a lot of fun dealing with stuff like that. So thank you very much to our Patreon folks. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, I don't want to speak on behalf of you guys, but I think as anyone and you two are much more public than I think when you deal with the mass MMA fandom, sometimes it can be a little bit grating. So when you have people that are there specifically to follow you and to support you, it tends to turn out that they're pretty cool.
Well, I mean, I know we got a lot of good messages from our Patreon fans talking about old hot tea. So that was good. So
that's right, mate.
You know, our people are very, very knowledgeable, and they're very attractive. They're funny.
Well endowed, I heard.
Yeah,
well
and
endowed.
very well endowed.
Yeah,
I heard
unlike
all
the people
of our
doing the podcast.
True story. True story. Where's my thimble? I need to put it back on. I need to put the cap back on.
Okay.
Jeez, we're all going to be fired. Let's talk plenty of MMA this weekend, by the way. Bellator 243 is on Friday night. Nolan King is out there in Uncasville, Connecticut, the Fight Sphere. He's out there handling business. Meanwhile, of course, we will be handling the UFC event here, UFC on ESPN Plus 32. I want to ask you guys an interesting question because, all right, first of all, this Bellator card is sneaky good, actually. You've got Michael Chandler versus Benson Henderson, the rematch in the main event. Of course, Michael Chandler's done great things for Bellator. Benson Henderson, we all know, his history in the UFC, WC as well. Timothy Johnson versus Matt Mitrione, Georgia Karakhanyan versus Miles Jury, Saba Hamasi versus Curtis Millender. So all very, very recognizable names, on the main card. Certainly, of course, Chandler and Henderson being the biggest stars of it. But when you get down to the prelims, Adam Borix is in there. AJ Agazarm versus Chris Lencioni is in there. Of course, Valley Lareda, who's become all the rage. We understand why there. And then some names that may be flying to the radar, but Nainoa Dung, who's a talented, and then Dalton Rosta as well, who looks like he could be the real deal as well. So it's actually a pretty good little card. And then when you get over to the UFC, of course, as we said, I mean, the UFC, they're kind of scrapping together cards right now. And it's not like I'm not trying to hate on it whatsoever. I like a lot of the fights on here. Derek Lewis versus Alexei Olenek, of course, the main event, kind of an old school striker versus grappler. Amari Akhmedov versus Chris Weidman, kind of a crossroads fight there for Chris Weidman, man. Really got to put something together. Maki Patola versus Darren Stewart. Could be a real banger there. Yana Kuskaya versus Julija Stoliarenko, and Beneil Dariush versus Scott Holtzman, which I love that fight. And we'll talk a little bit more about some of these fights individually, but what I wanted to say overall was the kind of the cards in the main event, because one of our questions that we had on Spinning Back Click this week, which Simon Head, our good friend from over in the UK, hosts, most weeks, and we kind of debate topics. But the question was, what's the bigger main event? Is it Chandler versus Henderson 2, Derek Lewis versus Alexei Olenek? And it's funny because I was the only one on the panel that said the bigger main event is definitely Derek Lewis versus Alexei Olenek. And
you gave a funny reason.
And I gave a funny reason first. I said, well, because they're both much bigger. So of course it's the
100
bigger.
pounds.
Yeah, it's 200 pounds. But I went back to it and said, no. But listen, I do think it's the bigger main event because when you look in the current world rankings, now granted, heavyweight is thinner than lightweight for sure. Well, that sounds weird, but the talent level is certainly not quite as deep of a division. So those guys are ranked, and to me, if it's anything that's going to affect the world rankings, then that's the more impactful fight. Chandler versus Henderson, while both those guys certainly have spent time in the rankings, they're not there currently. So in my mind, I was like, yep, that's the answer. And then Gorgeous George goes, they both went the other way. And it left me thinking afterwards, was I wrong? Was I looking at this the wrong way? And I did start to think about, like, if we were talking 5 years from now and looking back on the best fights from the weekend or the most memorable or the most impactful in history, like, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Chandler and Henderson has an opportunity to be more impactful in terms of his history and historical significance or something. I mean, obviously those two are kind of former champions,
right.
Whereas Lewis and Olenek, I mean, I can't. We'll see what happens in the fight, but I just don't see it being etched in the annals of history. But maybe I'm wrong about that. So I don't know which one do you think is the bigger fight, and how do we look at this?
Unfortunately, and it's something I've expressed annoyance with in the past, but MMA is a sport of what have you done for me lately. And unfortunately, I think that applies here, man. I think Lewis and Olenek is the bigger fight. Like you said, they're both ranked guys. I think if you have a fight with older fighters that needs to sort of overcome the what have you done for me lately, they need to be on the stature of like your Liddell versus Vanderlei Silva. That was a fight where they're both past it, but it was such an iconic matchup that it sort of shone through.
Right.
I just don't think maybe if Benson Henderson's career in Bellator had been a bit more I don't want to say successful, but
it's just his momentum has definitely slowed since he came to Bellator.
Yeah, and Michael Chandler's sort of half in, half out with Bellator. It looked like he was going to leave for a second. I just think for me, it's I try and say this without sounding completely disreputable, but it's a very Bellator fight, and I just don't necessarily think that has ramifications in the current realm of MMA. Whereas Derek Lewis beats Alexei Olenek. He could easily fight the winner of whoever wins against Ngannou, because they just refuse to give Curtis Blades a title shot.
That's definitely the way I looked at it originally. Like I said, it's what's more impactful. Now, Cold Coffee, you obviously produced that segment. You were taping it. You heard the argument as we were having it. What's your take on which one is the bigger main event? Because listen, in terms of all-time accomplishments, Chandler and Henderson have
heavily
both,
outweighs,
right?
yeah.
I would say each of them has accomplished more than Derek or Alexei, right? I mean, that's fair. That's easy to say, right?
Yep.
So both of them have accomplished more. Now, in terms of popularity, I would say Derek Lewis is probably, and I didn't do like a social media look or whatever, but Derek Lewis has to be the most popular out of all four of those individuals, right?
I would say easily.
I would think if you did a poll of randoms right now, he's the guy that would probably register.
Right.
But I think you would still need to refresh a casual's memory. Like you'd have to pull out. Did you ever hear that guy say that hot balls comment?
Yeah.
I bet somebody would do it.
Do you think so? I think he's very popular, man.
I think he is, but I just don't know if he's became name like a particular just a name that you could throw out and a random would say like, oh, okay, I know who you're talking about. I think some people you have to kind of refresh. Maybe he has reached it to where he is that face value.
That was
right
if we go back to my original argument, that was my argument as well. That you're kind of touching on is that I said to casuals, I would think Chandler and Henderson would probably maybe have more value, but to hardcores, Lewis and Olenek was. So I don't know which way do you lean?
I guess just.
I think that casuals. You think casuals know Derek? But you think to casuals that's the bigger fight, man?
I think Derek Lewis is my balls are hot on UFC 229.
Right.
Has probably eclipsed the popularity of Henderson and Chandler together.
Wow.
The eyes that he got from that comparatively are massive, and those two, they haven't had the sort of spotlight on them
Sure.
in like 5-6 years. You know.
I guess for me, I'll be devil's advocate and jump on the other side. When I was thinking about what is a bigger fight, you're right. When you look at Derek and you look at Lexi, in terms of the division and standing and what it means, that fight for setting up who is continuing on the path to fight for the title, it's definitely that particular fight. But when I think of what Chandler and what Benson mean to the overall brand of Bellator, while these guys are maybe sunsetting in their careers shortly, they still are, for Bellator, huge names. These are still two people that represent the brand. And if Bellator had to go out and look for investors or look to try to sell somebody on why they should watch Bellator, these are two of the names that they're going to throw out and say, we have this guy, we have Michael Chandler, we have Benson Henderson, we have former champs, and here's a battle of two former champs that are trying to, either still work towards the top, or they're going to answer some questions. There was some debate as for who should have really got the win the last time. So there's a little, you can maybe put a little heat towards that. So when I looked at these fights as for which meant more for the brand, the Chandler-Henderson fight, for me, felt like it was more important of a fight for Bellator
for
overall.
For
the promotion.
That's fair.
I would agree with that,
outside
for
of
sure.
just like, what does a Derek and Alexi fight mean for the UFC? It means, hey, we got a headliner for this weekend.
Yeah.
I completely agree with that.
So...
That's a good point.
But in terms of what makes sense for the division, and as for... for something that's like, I want to see something that, heck with these just random exhibition fights of grabbing this guy and this guy. I want a fight that means something for the guys that are fighting for the division, that are fighting towards a title. Derek Lewis and Alexei Oleinik all day long for when it comes to that. But
I think it's a good way to break it down. By the way, it looks like Oscar and I had the same idea in terms of let's actually get some hard data, which is probably what we should do as journalists or whatever.
Yeah.
But did you pull up all three of the Instagrams?
I did, yeah.
Give us the data, by the way. Here we are talking about the casual fans, and this is granted, it's a very informal. I mean, all we're looking at just is Instagram numbers.
Yeah, it's not a great metric, but Benson Henderson has 146,000 followers. Michael Chandler has 378,000 followers, and then Derek Lewis has 1.8 million followers.
I wonder, but
so Bellator
also
should
those
sign
guys-
Derek Lewis, put him against Rampage, and fucking blow this fight out of the water.
But don't you think that Benson and those guys, when they were firing on all cylinders, was Twitter really even a thing?
But that's what I'm saying, though.
Maybe at that point, if Twitter was as big as a social item at that time, maybe they would have had millions and millions. If it was, I don't really remember Twitter as being a bigger part of life back in those days.
No, definitely not. Now
but now it's like we got the
toxic
president
waste
that
hole that
uses it.
sucks us in every day.
Which is so kind of crazy. So I don't know. It's just weird. I feel like you're looking at guys that now maybe you have the people that follow him are the diehard fans that have loved him forever and just want to keep up on what's sort of happening. Whereas Derek, after that hot balls comment, I think his social media bumped up like exponentially. Like,
how many people do you think follow Derek Lewis just because of like the stuff that he posts and don't even know him as a fighter?
Half of them.
Yeah,
I bet 50% of people
He's
just want to see what he says.
Just the he's okay videos that he always posts or whatever.
Well, also talking about that 229 thing, Joe Rogan specifically said on the broadcast, "You got the best Instagram in the game." So I wonder how many people were casually watching that. I better go follow this guy.
Go follow this guy.
So here's another question about Bellator. This is the last fight on Michael Chandler's deal. He's made it clear he wants to test free agency. He's I think 34 years old at this point. So certainly has some. A couple years left, I would say, of top-level competition if he wants to make a run at the UFC. Clearly, if you go to the UFC, you're going to face nothing but killers. They're not going to bring you in at some, hey, let's start you low on the food chain. They're going to be paying for you. So what do you guys think? He's testing free agency. Is he testing free agency just to get the best deal possible, or do you think he has the passion, the desire to go? Because I would say for most of Michael Chandler's career, he was top 5 in the world at worst. Like I think he could come in the UFC and maybe not beat your Habibs, maybe not beat Tony Ferguson, I don't know, but definitely be competitive with anybody in the division. So what do you think? If you're advising Michael Chandler, or if you're thinking about how he's probably thinking, what do you think? He's made it clear he wants to test free agency. You think he's jumping ship, or you think he's just negotiating?
I'll go quick because I know you'll break it down a lot more. I would say there's two ultimate choices. I think he doesn't want to go to one. I mean, maybe he'll get some sort of maybe a little pay bump, but he's going to get some crazy killers that are going to give him every bit of a run for his money. I think that'll happen at the UFC as well. Maybe you'll have the luck of when,
Yeah, because in one, you end up facing crazy killers that nobody's ever even
that
heard
nobody's
of.
ever seen.
If UFC, you face crazy killers, but at least people go, dude, that dude
Yeah.
fought Dustin Poirier.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you know what I mean?
I mean, he could come in like a Gagey and just be this quiet storm that just rocks people. But at his age and at the way that his body, his injuries that he's had recently, I would try to hold out and get as much money, come back into Bellator, or maybe try to get a nice paycheck, go over to the PFL, just rock shit, and get another, maybe a
That's
year
interesting.
or so fights. But outside of that, I would use it for a bargaining chip. But I think Bellator is a great fit for him. I don't think he wants to try to come back in, get pushed down the ladder, and try to work his way back up in the UFC. I don't think he has that many fights in mind, because if you try to go up in the UFC, he's going to need at least 4 or 5 fights to get a possibility, and then maybe that's just too many, and maybe I'm playing it too many before I think he would have a
I'd say
possibility
he could do
of
it
getting.
in 3. I'd say he could do it in 3.
But you'd have to have killers right from the
Oh,
get-go.
exactly. But you're going to face 3 killers.
But you figure he's gonna want not the biggest fight for his first one, and then if they do give him a killer, I mean, like, at not being the current champ, it'd be one thing if he was a current champ. I would think then come over and give him maybe 3 fights.
Right.
But if he loses to Benson, I would say coming over the UFC isn't going to happen.
That wouldn't even be an
at
option.
all.
Yeah, he's not gonna.
But if he does win, I still think use this as a bargaining chip. I would say get more money, but I say stay in Bellator.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. Like if he was 30, it's
Yeah.
a different thing, right? But he's not. He's a bit older. So at this point, the career is going to be starting to wind down soon, if
Right.
not already. You have to get as much guaranteed
I think
money as
he's
you
mentioned as much, right? I mean, maybe I'm mixing up interviews. I thought he's maybe said that he's planning for the future. He's already thinking about the career after MMA.
I also think he might find the interest not to be as crazy as all that. I remember Eddie Alvarez said in an interview that they tried to sell the third fight to one, and one were like, nah, we'll take, not interested.
Yeah.
So maybe the interest in that. If he beat Benson, you would go to the UFC, and then I think that you'd have to basically take a risk. I will join the UFC probably for less money than Bellator will give me, but I need to come in and I need to fight Poirier right away, because like you said, he doesn't have that many fights. While he might want to slowly ease his way in, you don't have the time. You got to come in and just like go to that sort of top tier.
Because how many do you think?
Like-
he
like-
wants?
I was gonna say,
Three?
if
Maybe
he-
3 is the idea.
Like
if
Askren,
you
like they
want-
did with Askren. It's got to be the Askren model. Like get him in 3 fights, killers.
So here's what I
fuck
say.
off.
Okay, let's say he beats Benson Henderson, and Bellator goes, you know what, man? We're waiving our right to match. You're totally free, dude. You're good. We're not doing our 30-day exclusive. We're not doing our 90-day right to match. You can go. So this is kind of a dream scenario.
Which they would owe him at this point, I feel like.
Definitely would.
Yep.
But let's say they pass it, so he can actually sign with the UFC next week, okay? So we know what's out there. We know what's booked. I would say at worst, and I'm looking at the MMA Junkie rankings, as everybody should. I mean, why would you look anywhere else? But I would say at worst, you're coming in against number 8 Cowboy, which would be a good matchup, right? A guy that's kind of at the end of his career.
Yeah.
That'd be a good matchup. Or you're getting Hooker or Charles Oliveira, which that would be, I mean, that's I think those are, I'm not saying winnable matchups, but I think those are fair matchups,
They are
right?
fair matchups.
Those are
You're
fair
right.
matchups. Because as you said, you come in against Poirier in your first fight, like sink or swim, dog.
Yeah.
That'd be tough.
But what a fucking swim that would be. If you beat Poirier, you get a title shot probably off the back of that.
I mean, especially his fight style.
Well,
I
actually,
mean,
not that division. Never mind.
Yeah, right.
That is-
Yeah, you'd
that
be
would
third
be
in line at that
That
point.
would be a heck of a, when they say Styles makes fights, a Poirier versus Chandler would be a ball buster, man. That would be a lot of fun. But you're right. I mean, maybe that's the case. Is how many fights does he really want, and that will probably dictate where he goes. Because if he's thinking in his mind, I got another couple years, I got another 2 or 3 years. I mean, that could be 5 fights. I mean, if he's got in his mind, I got another good 2 years, a couple fights 1 year, maybe another couple fights another year. I mean, you have a little bit more leeway, but I just don't see him wanting to go to a place where he needs to re-show why he is there.
I agree.
When
I
Gaethje
think the
came
play
over,
is to stay
Gaethje was
there.
like,
Yeah, he's a
Gaethje's
Bellator
like,
guy.
I think so, and he should, and there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, there's some people that are like, it has to be the UFC. It has to be the UFC. I think the Bellator has proved themselves to be, one, an organization that supports the fighters. It allows them to have their creative freedom to do what they want to do. They let them have fun with their walkouts and let them get their sponsorship. They let them wear whatever. It lets them have these personalities. And it's paying a decent wage. And from everything that I've seen from him and everything I've heard from fighters respect the hell out of Coker. They dig what he's doing. So why go to another organization where you kind of are not at the top of the totem pole? You are literally earning your way back up. And if you're an older fighter, I'm not saying like he's an older fighter. I mean, he's still like 10 years younger than me. But still, this is
and you fight regularly.
young man.
I fight so often. It's just unreal. Don't do it. Don't follow my path, young man.
Wear a mask.
It's just. I don't see why somebody would leave a good thing for, unless the money. I mean, obviously, if one fighting somebody less than what you're probably going to fight in another organization, but is like twice the money, then you go where the twice the money.
Right.
If somebody's offering you twice the money, who fucking cares?
But if it's
Just
the same,
go.
if it's the same,
just
stay
stay
at
at
Bellator.
Bellator.
I agree.
If you're Bellator, he might not be your future, right? But
Right.
he is a recognizable name. And,
He's a pillar.
And you kind of need to keep them around,
Yep.
even if it's like, perhaps he's not worth the money we're going to offer him, but you need those recognizable names,
Yep.
names to
And you're
make
not-
it worth it.
And you're not worried about that guy getting in trouble.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like
it's like-
besmirching your brand.
That's
He's such
true.
a great
I mean,
representative.
squeaky clean dude. And you're right. When you think of like some of the killers out there and who represents a brand, when you think of Bellator, Chandler for sure is
Yeah.
one of those cats that you're just like, oh yeah, Michael Chandler. And
Yeah, Chandler.
And you don't
I'd
have
say
to say-
Chandler and the Pitbull brothers, right? Like
yeah,
that's like.
and you don't need to sell people on him. Like you don't need to say like, trust me, this guy is good. Like people are like, oh yeah, no, I
He's
got
an
you.
established commodity.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he is. He's a fantastic fighter, and that's why I'm excited for this fight. I mean, I was gonna play Benson's walkout song just to be an asshole because I keep throwing it towards everybody.
You do keep saying you're like, don't overlook Benson.
Don't overlook Benson. I mean, I feel with Benson, this is one of those fights that I think he knows people are already picking against him. So I think when we've seen Benson kind of go out there and perform well is when people kind of overlook, and it gives him that little spark. I mean, one, he knows, he believes in himself. He has a family to take care of, so you'll never get a Benson that doesn't train hard for a fight. But I think when you find that Benson that makes him want to get that winning urge back, something that it just ticks him a little bit, that little something, this is that fight. This is one of those fights, I think, where, one, he wasn't happy with the way that the last fight ended, but also Benson's a guy that's not going to be around forever, too. So if there's a handful or a couple fights that you could hang your hat on towards the end of your career, that you can look back on your career and that you can end on a good note, this is probably one of the biggest fights that Benson's going to have near the end of his career.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know what's going to happen, in the future. I'm not a seer to see the future, but this is about as big as Benson is going to get probably moving forward. So I would say if there's a
Agreed.
fight that's going to get him up for it, this is it. So I'm looking forward to see Benson come out and just, come hot and heavy. So
That would be crazy, right? If Chandler's kind of thinking about what that free agent contract's going to
Yes,
be, and
and
Benson
overlooking
realizing
Benson Henderson.
this is my moment.
dude, and
Boy,
Benson's,
that would change the balance of everything.
right? And Benson's always been, and granted, and we've always said this too, interacting and interviewing these fighters over the years, you can't but help get sort of into their family, their lives. As much as we try to stay impartial, I feel like I've watched his young family, come up and grow in front of us, become
Yeah.
a thing.
You were there
And-
when he proposed to his wife.
Right?
That's right.
So he's always been super swell to work with. He does his interviews. He comes in, even
He
if
used
I
to
know
not
he
love
might
media
be
so much, but now he's
but
a
he
lot
would
better now.
But he would still come in there,
Yeah.
and he always showed respect, and he never gave me grief when I worked for the UFC and then afterwards. So I give him the utmost respect, and I'm so excited for this fight because I think there's two different opposing forces that are going to come in there with two totally different hopeful outputs. Chandler wants to make a case so he can be as that's hot item that everybody's going to want. And I think Benson's like, this is my last, well, I don't want to say my last, this is one of my last moments to show people that I am still this special fighter. So,
Yeah.
dude, this is going to be fun. So,
a big
and
fight.
I love Derek Lewis. more than just about anybody because he's an incredible person. But when I look at this weekend, when I see what's going to happen on Friday and what's going to happen on Saturday, I'm super stoked for this fight.
It's a good weekend, man, and it is a big fight. And as I said, sneaky good little undercard for Bellator as well. Let's talk about that Derek Lewis-Alexei Oleinik fight because it does have some impact on the division. I mean, that's the reason I picked this. It is crazy, right? Because it's that old school, striker versus grappler. Derek Lewis looks good, man. He looks lean. Now, we are fighting in the small cage, right? So I'm really interested here, right? Because Alexei Oleinik, so we're in the small cage, which you think favors the grappler because they've got less to try to chase you down. Now, Derek Lewis is not the most mobile guy anyway, but I think he's more mobile than Alexei Oleinik, who's basically like just a tank coming at you, you know what I mean? Like just rolling on treads, like coming at you, And I feel like Derek Lewis should be able to move enough laterally. I think he's quick enough that he can stay away from Alexei Oleinik's advances, but you talk to anybody that's trained with Alexei Oleinik or compete against Alexei Oleinik, they'll tell you his grip strength and his squeeze is just otherworldly. And it does concern me a little bit because Derek Lewis, of course, famously does that thing where he gets taken down and then he just like literally just turns over and posts and stands up and he's like, dude, you do that against Alexei Oleinik and he's taking something. You know what I mean? And so that scares me a little. So I picked Derek Lewis in this fight. I think it's the right pick. But it would not shock me to see him get tapped out in the first round. You know what I mean? Like Oleinik's that kind of guy. So, and again, that small cage, we're seeing a lot of it, so we're talking about it a lot more. I don't know. What do you see in terms of this fight?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I feel like with Derek, the conversation has always been how healthy is he going into it, right? Because how healthy he is directly correlates to what sort of performance he often gives you. And he's one of those fighters where you can see when he's in there to fight, like against Travis Brown.
Yes.
Or you can see when he's not, like Mark Hunt.
Yes.
You can see when he's just kind of there and he knows he can't fight, like Francis Ngannou or whatever. So for me, he's been saying, and he looks like he's in great shape. He's been saying all the right things. He's been saying, I've had some medical issues. They're all cleared up. He has said that before.
Yeah.
But
he always, back's great. And then like you see him walking out of the cage afterwards, like literally holding his back.
Yeah, I nearly shit my pants and stuff like that. Yeah. So I'll take him at his word. He seems to be in as good shape ever, and he keeps saying, I'm finally taking it seriously. And he's actually one of those guys I'd love to see him take it seriously. I would like to see him, not just an arbitrary comparison, but, the Roy Nelson conversation was always, how serious is he really taking it? I'd like to see Derek Lewis really just go for it one time. Do I think Derek Lewis has the skill set to beat someone like Cormier or Miocic? Not really, but he could beat Ngannou. He could beat Ngannou, So and you never know. In 6 months, the oyster might be there for you to take. So I'd like to see him really push on at this point now. But then the conversation is he didn't really keep Latifi off him for all that long, and Latifi's not a finisher, and Latifi had 10 minutes, 13 minutes probably, of just holding him. And if he can do that, then Oleinik can do that, and that's where you think, okay, just styles make fights. I'd be picking Lewis as well, because I'm taking him at his word that he's feeling healthier, and I think a healthy Derek Lewis is actually very good, underratedly good.
Right.
But I also would not be surprised if we got made fools of.
I homered on this one.
I
was like, oh wait, Derek's fighting now. So yeah, no, I completely picked Derek. I mean,
did he come over here and play video games with you this week?
No, he didn't. I should have hit him up. I should hit him up. If Derek comes in and he's feeling healthy and his back isn't going to be an issue and he's able to kind of keep moving, keep some distance, and throw those kicks, maybe don't go too crazy with some of these kicks and flying knees and stuff that he likes to try to do from time to time.
You can't do that. You can't do that.
Because when people
even those nasty kicks that he throws, I don't even think you want to do that, man. Against Oleinik, man, I just think you want to move and box, man.
And maybe a knee every now and again, like time a knee, but
especially when Alexei tries to come in. People, I think, sleep on Alexei's striking as well. If you go back and look at the last fight against Verdum, I pulled up some stats. He outstruck Verdum. Not that anybody's saying like
pretty
Verdum's
poor Verdum though.
Right. But I was gonna say not that anybody's like, oh, when you think about striking, you think about Fabricio Verdum. But I mean, like he clearly outstruck him. I mean, I thought he looked so much better than Verdum, but I think so. We're seeing a Oleinik that is not afraid to push forward and get in there and throw hands. And the thing about Derek sometimes is a little slow to get started. And if Alexei comes in there and maybe kind of just works inside, and Derek doesn't keep that jab, doesn't keep in distance, Alexei's going to get in there and get a hold of him.
Yep.
And I don't think Derek, as much as I love him to death, has the skills to stop Alexei from getting him down the ground. And if Derek gets on his back and he can't get back, next thing we know, we're gonna see an arm choke, and it's gonna be.
If Derek gets on his back, he's in trouble. And again, if he does that thing where he just kind of turns to his knees and stands, I think he's in trouble there too.
Yeah. I think it could look like Cormier Lewis, where he just was almost just on the ground, like going, well, now what? And then slowly but surely gets arm choke. I think if it ends by sub, that's where it's gonna go, like an arm triangle choke.
I mean, Derek is so strong, and he just, I think his game is getting there. I mean, we clearly know that he needs for him to get the win, the fight has to stay standing, but he has to do it within reason. I think Derek has this playful side of him that he allows some of these funny, I think he's expecting his opponent wants to stay back because they're afraid of his power, so they let him throw some of these kicks, some of these spinning attacks at times, and you're just like, what are you doing?
He never trains those in the gym, right? Like,
right.
Can't possibly
I've never seen him do those, and the thing is, with an opponent like Alexei, if Alexei is expecting him to do something like that, if he gets in there and catches him in a moment of kind of having some whimsical fun, kind of getting loosened up, if Derek does something wrong, this is the wrong opponent to do that again. So if he stays focused and he keeps the kicks, just keep those front kicks, keep it straight into his chest, don't aim for his head, don't overextend yourself, because this is the kind of opponent you don't want to give a limb and just leave it out there. If you are going to throw it, please pull it back in quick.
He did say he was coming out balls blazing.
Well,
so
maybe
following it goes for the takedown, the heat alone will just propel him away.
Quick thoughts on Chris Weidman versus Omari Akhmadov, because I'll tell you what, I ended up picking Chris Weidman in this. I trust that this is the caliber opponent that he should be able to beat, even if it's still there. If it's not still there, I think it was the boys at Submission Radio actually asked me, and I hadn't really thought about it, like, could this be Chris Weidman's last fight? And I thought about it, and again, I hadn't put much into it, but on the fly, I was thinking, you know what, man? Maybe, because if he can't beat Akhmadov, Chris Weidman does not strike me as one of those guys that just wants to be around, like, hey, let me cash a few more paychecks or whatever. And if he can't win this fight, I'm not saying I'd run him out of the sport, but I could almost see Weidman going like, dude, if I can't beat Akhmadov, and I'm not disrespecting Akhmadov, it's just he's kind of that, Russian grinder. There's not the spectacular, championship level stuff there. It's just, kind of that durable, controlling guy. And I feel like Weidman should be able to beat him. If not, I could see him maybe saying like, I guess not.
If he got grinded down for 3 rounds without any sort of offense at all, I think maybe he would turn around and say, shit, man, maybe I did lose it. I didn't realize. But throughout his entire career, regardless sort of how he lost, Weidman has struck me as one of those sort of fighters who go, I had that one, and then something happened, and he's always been able to, if not convincing us, been able to convince himself that actually it was a bit of a fluke loss and he should be winning these, and it's just not his fault. I think he is young enough to continue having that mindset. I could see him not retiring after this for sure, depending on how he loses, right? But in terms of what's at stake here, man, he needs to win.
Yeah.
He seems to know that as well. But it's you could say his losses recently have been to elite competition, and they actually have. And the way he's lost has been, with the exception of the Reyes loss, which I think was pretty bad. But
that was bad.
Apart from that,
But then we saw what Reyes did with John Jones, and now you go, okay, well.
Yeah, but it's not so much the way he lost, it's the fact that it was like one hit, and he was just sort of like, the chin seems to have gone a little bit, I do wonder. But yeah, I mean, there's just no other words for it. He needs to win. And realistically, he needs to do it. If he's ever going to pretend he's a title contender again, he needs to win convincingly.
Yeah, he needs to do something spectacular.
Yep.
Listen, just real quickly, the main card fight that I'm probably most looking forward to, Beneil Dariush versus Scott Holtzman. Just two of the nicest human beings on the face of the planet. And dude, I think, potential fight of the night, type fight, man. I'm excited about this one. Looking down the prelims, obviously Tim Means is on there. Kevin Holland made it back. I like seeing that. Kevin Holland, man. Still looking forward to watching him.
So happy for him. So happy that he got in there. He was so funny.
He was pissed.
He was so pissed, but he was just so funny about it. He's like, I'm just going to fight anybody. He was like, he was looking around the room. I forget all the funny stuff. Go back and find our post-fight interview.
Because his fight got pulled, obviously, last week, but he did come and speak to you guys anyway.
And he came, and he was literally like, he's like,
you could see he was seething.
I smell Ed Herman's still around. I'll take that fight. Who else is here? I'll take that fight. And he's like, I'm going to stay around here, and I'm hoping I'm going to get a fight. And good on him because it happened. I mean, what a wonderful quick turnaround. He didn't have to try to, worry about cutting weight again. He just stayed in shape. And he's a fun fighter. I was really looking forward to see that fight between him and Trippin Giles. I thought that was going to be just a barn burner.
Yeah.
So this one, I mean, I'm excited just to see, him get that release that he wants. That's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Justin James returns, obviously former Eli wrestling coach there, so I'm happy to see him in the UFC and getting his second opportunity there. By the way, and we could talk about this for a long time. I know we've been going long already, but the whole situation with Ed Herman getting the $10,000 offer, what'd you guys make of that? Because I do feel like it's and I always hate to come out and be like, I've just been covering this game for a long time. I'm not trying to say that what the UFC is doing is fair, but my understanding is what they were trying to do is like, hey, look, we'll give you 10 G's and we'll book you like next week, kind of like what they're doing with Kevin Holland. Now, if they can't get the guy another fight, and obviously his opponent fell out through no fault of his own, then I think at that point, yes, you absolutely deserve show money. But I don't think you should necessarily I think if you take show money, then that means we don't have to worry about getting you a fight again for a while. So that's, to me, is the balance. If your opponent falls out through no fault of your own on the day of the fight or the day before, you make weight. If you get your show money, and I wish, and I've talked about this before, I wish there was a national kind of overseeing body maybe that that made this law to some degree, that if a guy makes weight, he should get his show money. The thing is, though, if you get full show money, I don't know that they should then feel obligated as well to get you another fight as soon as possible, because now they have a bunch of other people that they need to get booked. My understanding is when they say, hey, we'll throw you that 10 G's because we know you need a little bit of money in pocket right now, but we'll have you fight again like Kevin Holland is doing in a week or 2 weeks at worst. And if that's the case, I'll be honest with you, I don't find an issue with that. If they're going to get you a fight 1 week from now or 2 weeks from now, I have no issue with them not paying your show money. If they're not going to rebook you, then yes, you should absolutely get your show money.
I agree with that on the stipulation that there is a set time they have to rebook you, right? So 2 weeks that's about as far. If maybe
because if it's 2 months or something, I could have gotten another fight anyway.
That's outrageous. Yeah. So you need to. I think for Kevin Holland, I don't think Kevin Holland would look at himself and be like, I would not have taken 10 grand to wait 7 more days. You know, he probably would have been like, yeah, fuck it, I'll wait 7 more days and get 10 extra G's.
Yep.
That's fair. But if you're talking about here's 10 grand, we'll get you in October, that's unacceptable.
I agree. That to me, if there was ever going to be a policy that was developed, like an official policy where hey, here's what we have to abide by, that would be it. Hey, just give me a little bit of money, dude. I thought I was going to get a paycheck. I got a couple of bills I need to get paid. Let me, give me a little bit of money right now. But I still want to bank on myself to get that win bonus too. Because you know what I'm saying? If you just take the show money and then say, I'll see you in 3 months, then basically at that point you said, well, you basically just forfeited your potential win bonus, right? So, but if like you said, hey, we'll get you another fight within 14 days, and it ain't going to be a problem in this situation right now, the pandemic era, that to me would be the policy. We're only going to give you 10 G's, but we'll get you within 14 days, and you'll get a chance to get your guaranteed show money and potentially your win money.
I'd say give me that 10 grand and let me sign a piece of paper that says I fight within 14 days.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There should be.
It needs to be a legally
don't
binding
just promise me you're going to give me a fight.
Never, ever accept
because
that.
Because then that there's no guarantee. But it still feels shitty because the way they've sort of shown themselves, when you look at past occurrences, when that seems to be the norm is when somebody's come up and they've had a fight and something has happened with your opponent that's out of your hands. And this has even happened within the fight week, it seems.
Yeah.
Not even just fight night. These guys have been given their show money. He came through, his opponent couldn't make weight, the fight fell through. We felt really bad, we gave him his show money. These guys are there on fight night, they're trying to make things happen and it falls through. And I just feel like
maybe for someone like Kevin Holland, where it falls through on fight night, you should get 50% because it's already allocated. I can even no matter how.
That's the argument. Is that the money's already allocated?
If it's fight night, then I think you probably deserve a bit more.
It's not like they're getting millions.
But here's the thing.
Just give them their show money.
Here's the counter argument, though. It's already allocated, but it's not allocated for next week. We already had our budget for next week, and now we're going to add you to next week, so now we're over budget there. So how can you say we need to pay our budget here, but now we're going to blow our budget next week?
Well, it'd say, hey, give me that show money, and then maybe you don't have to give me the piece of paper that guarantees I fight in 2 weeks. Just tell me
that's what
that
I'm
you're
saying.
gonna try to work something.
That's what I think. If you're not going to get me in 2 weeks, then you owe me my show money.
You should be able to pick. Or give me my show money now, fuck the win bonus, and then book me in 3 months. Or give me 10 to 20 Gs, let's say 20 to be nice, and then book me within 14 days. 10 in 14 days.
You got to figure
20,
these guys are
21
spreading.
days.
They're spreading a little bit of the wealth around their team that's there. And if you only give them 10 Gs, or if they're getting something,
I said 20.
Or say they got like 2 or 3 guys there that you were hoping to, some of these guys, they might have been giving 10 grand to their coach and like their team. They might have had 10 grand just set aside for their team. Like if Ed was supposed to get 50-some thousand, 10 grand for him might have been like, hey, that was what I was paying my coach and my trainer. And then the other 40 is what I was going to take home. And then I was going to get my bonus, obviously, or my win bonus.
Maybe instead of 10 Gs, it should be a certain percentage of their...
A certain percentage, maybe.
So
it just feels like they've...
10 Gs for a newcomer versus 10 Gs versus...
We'll give you 18% of your current show money to just hold you over.
Yeah. Because 10 Gs, that's like contender series money.
Well, I mean, I lose more than that running for the bus. Let me tell you.
That's because you're so fat. I mean, but like you're looking at what they're paying guys on the contender series trying to get into the UFC.
Yeah.
And you got like a guy like Ed Herman that's got like 50,000 fights with the UFC.
I think I probably shouldn't say this without actually knowing. I think I saw Steve Morocco from MMA Fighting say he was on 54,000 show money, and so it's like, well, giving him 10 grand, I don't know.
Yeah, giving me 20%.
I bailed out of that. I bailed out of that point quite hard.
No, I think he was, because I remember the last time I was like, man, like good on Ed Herman. I think like, last time he picked up a winner, I was like, damn, he got $100,000. Like good on him, man. This this grinding veteran. I will say too, it sucks because I probably would have been Ed Herman, the guy that got on a plane and went to the bar or whatever.
Yeah.
But you do look at like Kevin
most
Holland.
Definitely would have been.
Oh, you know what I mean? Like that would
if there was a bar at the venue, you would have already been.
I'd already been there, so I can't fault him for that. But you do wonder, and again, I'm not taking a shot at Ed Herman because that's exactly what I would have done.
Yep.
But look, Kevin Holland was the guy that stuck around, went to the media tent, made it clear that he wanted to fight, and he got a fight. Whereas Ed Herman was like, I mean, now granted, it was a little bit different because Kevin Holland was already at the venue, like about to walk to the cage.
But John, which one had more fun?
Ed Herman.
There you go. And that's the question. What are we in this life for if not to,
I'd be the guy that had you. They're like, hey, we got to fight for you. And I'd be like,
Are you going to test me before I get there?
Yeah. It just feels weird. I mean, I agree. There should be something that they set some sort of pause. It just sort of feels like when we all think about it, that it seems like they already established the unwritten policy that if your fighter falls out, you get your show money. If you made it that close.
Don't you think that's the UFC, though? Let's leave all this unwritten so we can be fucking vague and sort of pick and choose.
True.
I always feel like the UFC, or certainly the people who run the UFC, are very, very, very bright people. And they, I believe, intentionally leave some things vague so they can't be held to right sometimes. And this is one of those things. Like, say, I'm pretty sure, John, we've heard Dana say, if you make weight, you're paid.
They used to be that way.
That's what it seemed,
but it was never official. It was never written down
Right.
because it's in their interest to keep it sort of in flux.
Kind of like when Dana's always like, well, if you wanted more for your contract, you should have got it on your contract instead of asked for it after the fact.
Right.
Like if you just let it go, it's going to go. So now it's like, what? Okay, so now they need to write in their contract that if something happens with my opponent, I should be guaranteed
within 48 hours, and I still make weight.
I should be able, So maybe that's it, fighters. Put it in your contract.
Just get rid of the win money. Get rid of the win. Just
help
yourself out and just take 75% on the show instead of like 50-50, and just give yourself the guarantee. Don't. Why would you gamble every time you go to work? You're gambling.
Right.
Especially in fighting when anything can happen.
That's why the UFC likes it.
Feels like this is Randy Couture all over again. We've been having this argument for 15 years, man. Well, good. All right. Well, listen, we've had a good afternoon, even if we started a little bit weird. Shout out again to
You got weird
Willis.
throughout. It's not just at the beginning.
Just weird all the way through.
If I'm on it, it's gonna be weird.
Yeah, it is. I did want to give one more shout out to Albert Williams, man.
Far Off Topic, y'all, on
Topic.
Spotify. You can find Far Off Topic, and you can find him at Fiasco Jones. Feel like if you want to send him something, don't flame him.
Yeah, don't flame him.
Don't at me,
Be
Holmes.
nice. He lost his job.
Yeah.
Sucks.
It's John's fault.
It's totally my fault. Sucks. Or in the meantime, if you want to support us, we will have a and a half episode this weekend, of course, as always, after every single UFC event, which is now every single weekend.
It's like every other day.
Yeah. So for all you Patreon people, we appreciate it. I look forward to talking to you on the weekend. For everybody else, we'll just say thanks for listening.
Bye.